John, Anik, and Kenny Florian podcast. John, Anik, and Kenny Florian.
I f***ing love them. I can't get enough of them.
Let's hear that Boston next.
Big jab there from Duffy, and Frank Mir is hurt now. Down goes Duffy, out cold. Frank Mir does it again. Rock'em sock'em robots here. Oh my goodness.
Hyperbole.
They're a couple of absolutely self-involved bull artists.
Here are your hosts, John, Anik, and Kenny Florian.
Few things in life like a pay-per-view recap week. Am I wrong? All the pleasure on this side of the microphone. Monday, June 12th, 2023. It is episode 415 of the Anik and Florian podcast presented by DraftKings on the DraftKings Network, DraftKings YouTube channel, and wherever in the world you ingest your podcast. Thank you so much for being with us. Man, do we have a lot to get to today. My man Ken-Flo back from the ATL. I'm back from Vancouver after an unnecessarily long travel Sunday. It is Monday morning, right? I'm invading my twin brother's house at like 8:30 this morning to prep the podcast. They all got to be thinking, like, can we get this lunatic out of our square footage, please?
How you doing on sleep, dude? That's a long flight.
Not great. Just riding this Amanda Nunes high, though. You know, just riding this lioness high. So PFL was also in action. Of course, we'll get into Jesus Pinedo's huge upset of Brendan Loughnane. So Impa Kasanganay came and trained at the house after a win. Is that what happened?
Well, no, he came by. We talked about fights and stuff, but there was the UFC pay-per-view. So he was in town. We were talking. I said, hey, if you want to come by, watch the fights. He's like, yeah, actually, I do want to watch the fight. So he came by and we watched some fights. It was great. Impa loves you, by the way. He's a big fan, and he's such a good dude, man. It was great to see him also advance to the playoffs. He was on the Challenger Series. He's had 3 fights in under 4 months, dude.
Yeah,
like it's crazy, and all wins. So.
And we're going to get into everything that was UFC 289. But when you are, as Impa Kasanganay was, on the wrong end of what I believe is the most spectacular knockout in UFC history by Joaquin Buckley, there's a rebuild that happens. And for better or for worse, it's not happening in the UFC. And perhaps rebuild is the wrong verb because he's a really good fighter. And now I think capable of really gaining financially in this PFL format. He has huge hands. We did talk on the UFC telecast during the Dan Ige fight, Kenny, about fighter hand size. And I'm bringing it up now because we're talking about Impa, and it's always something that I look for in these fighter meetings. You don't have small hands. You actually have pretty big hands. Dan Ige has absolutely massive hands. Charles Oliveira, huge hands. Platinum Mike Perry, massive hands. And I know power can be the byproduct of a lot of different things. It can come naturally. You can train for it. It can be technique. It can be speed. It can be angles, all sorts of things. But it doesn't hurt to have mitts like Impa Kasanganay, and he'll break your hand when he shakes it.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. He's a monster. He's extremely strong. But yeah, man, it's like having a kettlebell at the end of that arm that's swinging, right? It's at the very end of the lever. So when you're talking about something that's loose, it's hitting like a ball and chain. And if that ball is a little bit heavier than someone else's hand, right? It's going to have an impact. I do believe there's something to that as far as knockout power, man. No question.
All right, well, it was a busy week. I started the week in our native Boston, Massachusetts, filming a new commercial for DraftKings and had a great time with my DraftKings family. And I just have to say, living in South Florida, which is sort of culturally vacant in a lot of respects, to go back to Boston at my now advanced age, couple weeks shy of my 45th birthday, it crystallized a lot of things for me that maybe wouldn't have been crystallized had I gone back there regularly in my early 30s. Now with this DraftKings relationship, I find myself back in the bean more often than not, once a year. And I know you're in Charlotte. It's a great city. I might move there, but it just feels like I should be raising my kids in New England and Massachusetts. It's like, what am I doing raising Floridians? It just doesn't feel like it makes the right sense.
It's awesome, especially right now. I mean, the weather in Boston, you go back, you're like, man, this is what it's all about. Boston in the spring, the summer, and even the fall is just so great. Everyone's out and about. Everyone's kind of walking by the Charles River and all that stuff. It's just such a cool vibe. The snow, though, John, that's the thing that kind of keeps me away. It's the shoveling of the snow, the driving of the snow. Yeah. But other than that, I mean, there's nothing better than Boston. I have said repeatedly I should take my kids to Boston
Not in the summer, have them stay at the Boston Harbor Hotel, go in the winter, in the dead of winter, and see how they like it then. No, I mean, that is the reality, right? I mean, the number one reason I'm in South Florida is my mother, and a close second is the weather. I don't know, man. I hope the local Floridians that I see around aren't going to be too upset with me. But it just was great to be in two culturally rich and diverse cities like Boston and Vancouver back to back. It just kind of opened my mind up a little bit. It wasn't the mushrooms. It was just the culturally diverse cities that opened up my mind. All right, so a lot to get into today. Of course, we are going to begin with UFC 289. We could certainly lead the dance with Charles Oliveira, and I don't even know how to not cuss every other word when I talk about Charles Oliveira, one of the greatest fighters of all time, one of the greatest lightweights of all time, probably my favorite fighter, if I can even say that on an open microphone. But let us lead with the retiring, unquestioned women's greatest of all time. Amanda Nunes gets past Irene Aldana by unanimous decision, 50-44 times 2. Dissenting judge had it 50-43. And Amanda Nunes brought her best, Kenny. Despite some of the misinformation that was out there, you know, I told this audience I spent 2.5 hours at the Lioness studio the week before the fight, and she was, I think, misleading me in a lot of respects when it comes to her retirement. She approached this fight as if it would be her last, and she had all the motivation that you would expect, and just a vintage, I thought, Amanda Nunes performance in dominating a pretty lackluster at times Irene Aldana.
No question. I think there's two motivating factors, right? There's the fact that Aldana was a legitimate threat to her. She's got a cracking right hand when she's throwing it. She has a good, educated jab when she's throwing it. She's dangerous on the ground as well. She's going to fight for every single position. She's not going to go away easily, and she's certainly not going to give up. And the fact that you have that backdrop that this was going to be her last fight in her head, she was going to retire after this fight. I mean, there was a lot there. And because of that, we saw, in my opinion, one of the sharpest performances from Amanda Nunes because of it. She was on point from the get-go. Her timing was phenomenal. She was loose the whole time. She kept a pace that was manageable for 25 minutes, and it was a furious pace at that. She was landing hard shots. She was mixing in takedowns. She was landing good ground and pound. She was getting good position. I could go on and on and on, but when you're talking about a retirement fight and how you want to look and how you want to present yourself and how you want, that lasting image for people to kind of look at it and for yourself as well, I thought it was about as perfect as it gets. Just phenomenal stuff from Amanda Nunes, who has been not only one of the most impressive fighters in UFC history, but also one of the sweetest people outside of the cage. So I was super happy for her. That's how you do it, folks. That's how you say goodbye to the sport. And just finished with a bang. So that was super cool.
I've gained a lot of insight into Amanda over the years in these fighter meetings, but never more so than having that extended time with her, obviously, at her new gym the week before the fight. And what I kept coming back to was just her initial motivation to be a world champion when she moved from Bahia, Brazil to the U.S. back in 2011. And she was sort of in a soft way comparing it to motherhood and how motivating that is and how much she loves being a mother. But she couldn't even think about motherhood until she had checked the box, beat Miesha Tate, become a UFC world champion. Just a total obsession for her. And it's interesting to harken back to some of her early career losses against somebody like Alexis Davis, and people ever wondered if she would actually be able to have a great cardiovascular base and a style that could extend over 25 minutes. She's incredible. And I think for you, what you would probably appreciate most, other than the vast skill set, is just she's a master strategist. And I don't know if it was Dean Thomas who said it, but even using her wrestling as a mechanism by which to get a rest in a fight like this, right? Didn't even get credited with getting Aldana down the first 2 times. They didn't even give her a takedown. She didn't want it. Just, I'm going to dump you down and take a fucking breather and then get back to outstriking you. She's incredible.
Yeah, and it was also about imposing her will and just showing how dominant she was. It looked like a master and student type relationship out there. Now, Aldana, I don't think she had her best performance. Now, a lot of that had to do with what Amanda was doing, though. People forget that. It's like, do you just walk forward and try to throw punches against Amanda Nunes, who is this very dominating force, who's probably going to hit harder than any woman in history in that division? It's risky stuff. And I think she was very afraid of exchanging with someone like Nunes because of that power. I also think the speed factor was there, and also, you have a legend in front of you. That could freeze up any competitor out there. So I wonder what those factors exactly were for Irina Aldana, but she just wasn't as busy as she needed to be, and she happened to face an Amanda Nunes that was extremely motivated and very, very sharp.
I would stop short of calling it Irene Aldana's worst performance, but I certainly expected more. And I guess I would throw it back to you in terms of the risk mitigation down the stretch. And Francisco Grasso still might be my coach of the year when all is said and done at the end of 2023. But in a round 5, you're trying to become a world champion. And I know Irene Aldana feels like she'll get back there. And candidly, with Amanda Nunes retiring, she's got a pretty good chance if she can make the weight. Although if they do get rid of this 145-pound division, I actually felt like Aldana had a great chance to move up and contend to be a UFC featherweight champion. But it seems as though Dana White said at the post-fight press conference that maybe that division is going away. But in a 5th and final round, Kenny, when you're fighting for a world title, should you be more caution to the wind in theory and be willing to get knocked out, or is that just way too simplistic and really me sounding like a non-fighter?
Well, I think that you definitely need to be more aggressive. I didn't see that same sense of urgency. I don't recall exactly what was said from rounds 4 to 5 in between rounds. I don't recall it, and I certainly didn't see the whole communication between coach and Aldana there. But I did hear it after round 3. And while there was this urging of the coach to kind of move forward and be more aggressive, there wasn't this message of, hey, you've lost 3 rounds. Like, you're not going to win a decision. Go out there and finish her ass. You have 10 minutes to finish her right now. I didn't hear that. So that's one thing. I don't know what was said between 4 and 5, and it's not necessarily the responsibility of the coaches alone. Aldana's been in there many times. She needs to know she was losing that fight. So I definitely think that she should have been way more aggressive and winging harder shots, moving forward, looking for knees to counter those takedowns, something big. And I just wasn't seeing those attempts at whether it was, some kind of submission attempt or some kind of, flying knee or something that showed that she was trying to finish her. It almost looked like she was trying to win the round. It's like the fight's over. You've lost the first 3. Like, do something more. And I just didn't see that out of Aldana, unfortunately.
I mean, she was shelled up all night, and the biggest shot she landed was in round 1, and you felt like maybe that would give her some confidence going forward to take a few more risks. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, you got to credit Amanda Nunes, and when you look at the numbers, even though we don't always lean too far into them, this was just total domination. And I agree with you. I think one of the better performances of this otherworldly career for Amanda Nunes. So 12 consecutive title fights to close it out for the now 2-time UFC bantamweight champion. She turned pro at 19. She is now 35 years of age, actually just celebrated a birthday recently. And it remains to be seen as to whether or not she is really done. I believe she is really done. The question beckons, if in 18 months there is some dominant 135-pound champion, could Amanda Nunes get the itch to come back? Perhaps. I just don't see it. I think she's going to be successful in whatever she does. We'll see what happens with the Lioness Studio. It's an amazing space, and she could do a lot with it. She could turn it into a studio if she so chooses. But what do you think in terms of Amanda Nunes? Do you think this felt final to you? And what do you think about this in terms of a punctuating note on which to go out?
It did feel final. I think that she has had an amazing career. She realizes that. I think the fact that she's going to be a mother for the 2nd time is a motivating factor for her. And also, with Nina at the helm, managing the money and all that stuff, it seems like, they're going to be fine. I think they've done very well for themselves. Yeah. So it's not many times. It's this motivating factor of money, right? It's like, oh, I've run out of money. I need another fight, or I want to get this other house and whatever. I don't think that's the problem for them. I don't think it will be moving forward. That's about as perfect as it gets. Even getting the revenge over Pena and all that stuff. I don't know. For me, looking from the outside in, I think she's probably done, and it's a well-deserved retirement for sure.
Yeah, I don't think you're ever going to see Amanda Nunes compete in mixed martial arts again. I don't know if Nina said anything about her own career. People have no idea just how good Nina is. She absolutely could make a run at 125 pounds. You're not going to see Nina at strawweight, but I wouldn't be surprised to see her make a run. And I do think Amanda has a ton to offer the sport, and there, of course, are a lot of revenue streams for her in MMA moving forward. So we congratulate the greatest of all time. We do have a couple tweets coming in here at Anik Florian Pod. This one from Michael Stradford at Gizmo Studios. What does Amanda's retirement mean to you personally? So it makes me feel very old, right, that Amanda Nunes is now done, right? It makes me recognize how long that I've sort of been at this. It means a whole lot to me because she is a friend. We're local to South Florida. Way back in the day, my daughters got to voice something on Amanda's behalf alongside Marquita Cormier, DC's daughter, as you may recall, and that sort of linked our families a little bit. Amanda has signed some stuff for them, and for me to have that embraced with Amanda after she won that fight almost like trumps that whole Leon Edwards business for me, is like the most special thing that's happened to me in my career, man, because ultimately at the end of the day, and I shared this with the audience here, not in a self-serving way, but, all I'm really trying to do, Kenny, is like humanize these athletes and do right by these athletes and make sure that the soundtrack of their professional lives is something that they and their families are proud of. Even if it extends to letting the masses know that it's Amanda Nunes' eggs that are inside Nina right now. So for her to sort of acknowledge that with just a kiss on my forehead at the end of her GOAT career is just very special to me. So I'm very happy for Amanda, and I can't wait to get hammered with those ladies several times here in South Florida as they, vault off into retirement. So,
dude, that was such a cool moment, man. And you do such a masterful job of weaving in the stories in and out and giving the people all the right information that they need. And I loved it. That was one of the best moments that I've seen you a part of. The first person she goes over, hugs and kisses was John Anik, and it was cool, man. Again, it shows the respect, not only her, a lot of the fighters obviously have for you, but to see Nunes go over, she spots you, she goes over, gives you a kiss on the forehead. I assume you haven't washed your forehead yet, but dude, that was a really, really cool moment, man. That's about as good as it gets right there.
Meant the world to me. Well, thanks, buddy. I appreciate you as always. All right, congrats to Amanda Nunes. We'll see what happens with Irene Aldana. Real quickly, as far as this 135-pound division is concerned. Probably going to be Juliana Pena versus Raquel Pennington. I would think, Pennington is the number 2 ranked contender. She's won 5 consecutive fights. She was the backup here, and Juliana Pena was to fight. But these are 2 former, Amanda Nunes victims. Obviously, Pena has the head-to-head win. What are your thoughts now? I mean, it's a vacancy, right? I mean, this is a massive, massive vacancy. What are your thoughts on this UFC women's bantamweight division now moving forward without Amanda? And I would also just say, Holly Holm, Ketlin Vieira, welcome news for a lot of these athletes, but this is a big, big hole that is going to be filled by somebody.
Listen, no disrespect to anybody in that division, but if we're being honest, it's Amanda Nunes and then everybody else. That's how good she is. That's how good she was. I think there's some great fights. There's some really exciting fights, but when we're talking about the pinnacle of mixed martial arts skill, Amanda Nunes is in a class all by herself. So I think that division, we're going to feel that. The fans are going to feel that to a certain extent, but it does open up the door for, other fighters to emerge, of course, right? Or maybe, someone like Shevchenko to go up or whatever, so it's very interesting in that regard that now it's open territory, open season for someone to emerge and try to fill that gap. No easy task, of course, with Amanda Nunes, greatest of all time there. But, I think there's a lot of exciting fights. One of them is that Pennington-Pena fight. I think that would be an absolute banger. Those are 2 girls that love to move forward.
It would be a great fight.
And, I don't see any of them trying to give up an inch there. So that's interesting. But Nunes, I mean, you don't get an Amanda Nunes very often. So, yeah.
And I don't believe Pennington-Pena has happened prior. A lot of these 35ers have fought each other. Holly Holm's got experience and wins against most of these ladies. Last thing I had before we get to Charles do Bronx Oliveira. And I can assure you, if I ever grow my hair out, even a couple inches, we're dyeing it blonde or bleaching it like Charles Dubronk's Oliveira. But the last thing I had for you, and it's sort of a general conversation that you can lend your experience to, this whole notion of the moment being too big for an athlete. I did not expect this moment to be too big for Irene Aldana. And Dean Thomas, whom I spent some time with at the airport, sort of suggested when he sees a fighter warming up and they perpetually are like getting unbalanced and they're having a hard time staying balanced as they're warming up, he worries that maybe nerves are an issue. I didn't like the way she looked when she hit the tunnel. Now, one thing I did not expect was this moment to be too big for Irene Aldana, and perhaps that was wrong of me, and perhaps you don't think it was too big for her, right? But I often reference when she fought Larissa Pacheco 10 years ago, going into the belly of the beast, fighting in Belém, Brazil, in a jungle fight title fight when you're like 4-1, right? 10 years later, 11 years later, I feel like with this wealth of experience that she would be ready to go. And I just thought she was wide-eyed. You know, she's fought Holly Holm. She's been in a lot of big settings. She's main evented for the UFC. Anything, you know, whatever people want to say about your championship losses to BJ Penn and Jose Aldo, I don't believe that the moment was too big for you. Yeah. What do you have for me on that?
That's a big point, man. And I think that there's been moments like in the Diego Sanchez fight, the finale of The Ultimate Fighter, where the moment was too big for me. It was very overwhelming. Even in some of the wins after that, I was still getting my feet wet and getting used to being in the octagon. And I think a championship fight is also extremely different. The whole buildup on fight week, answering all the questions, you start to build this thing up bigger than it is. You know, certain things that coaches may say, certain things leading up to the fight, certain things on fight night that make it a bigger deal. The reality is it's still just a fight, but this is the biggest fight of your life, and how you manage that in your head is super important. And to me, that could very well have been the case for Irene Aldana, where she's in this moment and she just can't quite pull the trigger, and she was hesitant. She actually sees Amanda Nunes in front of her moving around, trying to hit her. She gets off to a poor start, and then things just start to snowball from there. It's easy for that to happen to a fighter. What I do think, though, is she's going to learn a ton from this. If you're investigating yourself and trying to figure out what the hell happened and how do I allow myself to go out there and perform at my best when I need it, I think we're going to see a better Aldana because of it. I would not be surprised if she gets back to that championship spot and we see a much, much better performance because of it. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of factors at play, John. Getting UFC jitters, whether it's your first fight or a championship fight, is a very real thing. There's a lot on the line, man. These fighters are dealing with a lot. It's a big moment. There's someone in front of you that's trying to hurt you. We cannot forget that.
And the other thing that Dean Thomas said, and he is always sage, the weight cut, right? She has not made 135 pounds tons and tons of times over. And she canceled our fighter meeting because she was already amidst her weight cut. There were rumblings that she was throwing up on Friday morning. She was the first fighter to hit the scale. She made 35, but I think it's ambitious to think that at 35 years of age, she can just keep making 135 pounds if she remains in practice as to what she is doing. And I don't think the weight cut helped her performance on Saturday night, but she is all class, and I do think valuable experience accrued for Irene Aldana. But congratulations to Amanda Nunes, and can't wait to give her a hug after she puts a capstone on the greatest women's combat sports career we have ever seen. All right, plenty more coming up over the next 35, 45, 50 minutes on UFC 289. Let's get to the Ray Longo Minute.
It's now time for the Ray Longo Minute.
I want you to punch a hole in his fucking chest. That's what I want.
The Ray Longo Minute. Starring Ray Longo. The John Anik and Kenny Florian podcast.
Oh, yeah.
He's up.
Oh, man. This is like 4:30 in the morning to you guys.
So it is 10:31 a.m. Eastern as we lay down the Anik and Florian podcast live to tape here on a Monday. Earliest call time we have asked of Raymond in the 415 episode history of the show. So I softly was hoping we could get you at this time because some of us have some conflicts later in the day. These pay-per-view recaps are huge shows for us. Thank you for waking up early, my man.
How pathetic is that this is early for me? Seriously, you could be honest. Kenny, how pathetic? I'm not even joking. How pathetic is that?
Hey, you're a busy man. You need your rest. You need to recover.
100%. There you go. There you go. I like it. How we doing? John got a big kiss on the head. National TV.
I honestly feel like I can retire now, right? Like, I don't ever think that I'll feel more fulfilled professionally, right? Honestly, right? I mean, all I'm really trying to do is do right by these athletes, you know what I mean? And so to have her respect, Conor McGregor once did an interview with Megan O'Leary, and he said I was a huge asset to the company, and it's just like things like that is what you live for, and however self-serving it is for me to talk about it on the show, so be it. But thank you.
No, but let me tell you something. Conor McGregor is 100% right. I was looking to joke around about it, but now that we're going down serious.
No, let's joke about it.
No question about it. I was going to say, just whatever you do, don't get anything else tattooed on your body because of that. But
it's so funny because
Conor McGregor is 100% right. Huge asset. I hope everybody realizes that too.
No question.
Why couldn't I get like a Brazilian flag tattoo though, or something?
You should get the Brazilian flag lips right here on the forehead. That'd be good.
Dude, that is yeah.
We could do it.
Dude.
Just have her kiss on a piece of paper. Just have someone tatted on your head.
Yeah. But I have thought in the past, we did a tattoo bet actually on the Anik and Florian podcast back in 2015 that if Betch Correia beat Ronda Rousey, I was getting the Brazilian flag tattooed on me, and Betch Correia did not get it done that night. But
did we really go from Amanda Nunes to Betch Correia?
We did. But before we spin it forward to Charles DuBronx Oliveira, and you're looking great as usual, Raymond.
Oh,
your hair's behaving better than ever. But what do you have for us on Amanda Nunes? I mean, what a tremendous performance on which to go out.
Yeah, listen, unequivocally the greatest to ever do it, female wise for sure. But you could throw her in any conversation. But I was more disappointed. I thought Aldana had a shot of winning that fight. Like, I couldn't have been more wrong. I was more disappointed in Aldana getting that shot, and just it was like a deer in headlights. The first 3 rounds, you might as well have watched Amanda work the heavy bag. That's what it kind of looked like.
Right.
Kenny, it was almost frustrating. You could even her balance. I mean, she would just touch the leg. The girl was rolling around on the floor. It was just almost crazy. I don't know what I was feeling, but I just think you get that one shot, and I would have just. I don't know. It's really weird, but I definitely don't want to take anything. I think it was one of those things too, where it wasn't even what Amanda was doing, because she was playing it cautious a little bit at the beginning, and then she started picking up when she realized absolutely nothing was coming back, and she did the 100% the right thing. She gave us a little bit of everything: stand up, on the floor, ground and pound. So it was a great performance by Amanda Nunes, and just everything. I'm happy for her. It looks like she made the right move getting out. She's going to enjoy her family. I mean, as a coach, I don't know if she did or she didn't, because I wasn't really watching the whole thing, but I don't think she did. But I would have liked to have seen thank like a Mike Brown or somebody at ATT that helped, the majority of those years. You know what I mean? As a coach, I get a little sensitive to that stuff. I think that would have been nice. I have no clue or idea what happened, why she's even at it.
Well, I do, and I didn't before the fight week that just was, right?
Yeah,
so Amanda has no ill will towards any one individual, but I just believe a lot of things were mishandled. But I think it's fair of you to say that. And I think everything you say is fair about the fight, Kenny. It's really tricky when you get to these situations where you're trying to simultaneously praise and laud Amanda Nunes while also acknowledging that Irene Aldana did nothing with this title fight. I share a lot of Ray's emotions. What do you do?
John, I was frustrated. It was, I don't know. I just thought that Mexican thing, they had that thing going. She took, towards the end of the fight, she took everything Amanda threw at it. You might as well go for it at that point. It just turned into that. But look, that fight has nothing to do with the legacy of Amanda anyway. But I thought she handled herself perfectly in that fight. She picked it up as it was going on. And, she looked great as usual, but it was more. Yeah, I don't know. It was a tricky one. It was more frustrating, very frustrating to look at. It's a title fight. I mean, you got one shot. You worked your ass to get there. You definitely could box a little bit, I think, unless I'm totally wrong with what I was looking at in the past. But that was frustrating. As a coach, I would have lost my shit for sure with that.
Kenny, I know we talked about this a lot, and it's hard for me as a non-fighter to sit here and say, come on, man. You got one shot. It's like I'm not in there getting fucking jabbed by Amanda Nunes. And by the way, there was one elbow, brothers, I should say, that caused you could see where it could have sliced her cheek wide the fuck open. I'm telling you guys, if that elbow that Nunes landed had 4 more miles per hour, Irene Aldana might have a scar for life, and we'd have a TKO and one of the most vicious knockouts in UFC history,
Man, Nunes just had so many different weapons firing, and I again for Aldana, I just wonder what was going on. Was there something physical happening? But yeah, again, there's no greater motivator than being down 3 rounds, and you got 10 minutes to get a finish, and we just didn't see that sense of urgency for whatever reason. And she got off to a bad start. That could happen, but not making any adjustments and not making, not having the energy like you're almost desperate in a way. It's cool that you're staying composed and stuff, but throw stuff.
Right,
Try to go out there and win that fight. And we just never saw that. So I don't know. Was it a physical shutdown? Was it a mental shutdown? Was it both?
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah, it was that to me. It was go out on your shield to go home. At that point, at some point in that fight, it's just trust me. You'd be better off going for it, getting in a little bit of a scrap. Now, who knows what's going to happen? But I don't. Look, you don't want to be critical because, like John said, the people in there. She earned the right to get up there. You know what I mean, and to be in that fight. It's just no. I'm saying it was more. Yeah, it was depressing. It's not a bad thing. I expected way more. Put it that way. That's just end it like that. Not even getting technical or saying anything, but just wow. The hands never came away from her head. It was when you started looking at the punch stats. We're not even at some point. You're not even trying. It wasn't. You weren't getting bombed that bad. And I don't have to. Yeah, I don't know. It didn't look that way to me, but I wasn't there. You were there, so you were better.
No, I agree with a lot of your sentiments and your text messages. And again, we appreciate the text from Raymond Peter Longo on Fight Night all day. All right, let us get to the co-main event.
Man.
And if I had more muscle mass in my breast region, I would get Charles Oliveira's face tattooed on my chest the way he has his relatives tattooed on his chest. I want to start with Ken-Flo on this and then get to Raymond. Kenny, Charles Oliveira, man, what else can you say, man? He stopped 20 fucking men inside that octagon.
That's insane. And especially when you have the backdrop and the context that's in the 155-pound division, a division where, the guys legitimately in the top 25, maybe top 30 are absolute killers. Now, I'll get into something a little bit different that might be a little bit of a party pooper, but as far as offensive skills and what this kid is capable of, when he hurts you, he takes you out right after that. That is a skill that very few people have, and he can do it in a variety of ways, whether it's with some crazy, beautiful submission or some nasty knockout. Knees, elbows, fists, it doesn't matter. He's an offensive marvel, and it's so pretty to see him work. When he's moving forward and he's in a groove, dude, there's very few people that are able to stop that. And this was a performance that was much needed for him. He obviously wants that shot against Makhachev again. I think he deserves it. And I thought it was just a fantastic performance. He was in some trouble there for a little bit against Beneil Dariush. Dariush wasn't really able to take advantage of it. But anyway, I'll give my thoughts on kind of both those guys a little bit later. But again, Oliveira offensively is one of the most impressive fighters that I have seen in the UFC, no question.
Yeah, I agree with Kenny too. Killer instinct, off the charts. When he gets you hurt, he's a finisher. Period. That's it. And like again, I think Kenny brings up a good word. When he's in the groove, when he's in his rhythm, he's a beast, man. I think sometimes I think what gets overshadowed maybe is because he's got so many ways to get you out of there. Gaethje, he's coming. He's swinging for the fences. He's trying to chop your leg down. This guy could do it also, but he has other ways of winning too. So I think that's what confused me a little bit. His striking, I thought that fight was off the hook. You know what I mean? And I thought that Saturday night there was, I don't know, I really felt like there was going to be two upsets. Not that would have been an upset because Dariush was I think he was the favorite by the end. But, man, you could see Dariush, he did have a way to victory. He looked like he could survive on the ground. If he could have taken him down and stayed on top, he probably could have played it safe. He looked good down there, but when that fight got back to its feet, that other guy was just like a Terminator, man. I tell you, very, very super impressive. Really?
We got to get rid of that fucking crackle, man. Snap, crackle, pop. It's like cereal right now. That sounds awful. But yes, Beneil Dariush, there's a lot of angles, of course, on his side of things in this matchup. Oh, my God, man. I can't even take it. Like, I'm not even ignoring it anymore. Yeah, somebody typing that is fucking brutal. I can't even do the show like that. I'm not even playing.
I just heard it now.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. I'm not even messing around. I know producers don't like when you mention stuff like this, but I'm not going to just continue to do the show like this. Oh, my God. We can stop the fuck down. No, maybe it just stopped. All right, let's continue. So there are plenty of Dariush angles on all of this. You see, I do have a dark side. You see it come out when we have technical issues. That sounds beautiful right now. So we will get to Beneil Dariush and all of this. But for Charles Oliveira, when you look at this kid's body of work, right, and the way he responded
it's coming back
to Islam Makhachev's loss, the way he responded to the loss, weighing 154 pounds, the appetite for hard work, right? This is a kid who made his UFC debut at 20 years of age, right? He has this entire nation on his shoulders, right? He is the king of Sao Paulo. He's one of the most popular fighters in the world today. All the loudest ovations all week long were reserved for this guy. He is a bona fide UFC superstar with arguably the greatest resume of any fighter of all time. I'm not saying it's my argument, but you can certainly make it. You know, you add a Beneil Dariush scalp to this resume after Benny Dariush reels off 8 consecutive wins, and you go beat him like this. I don't know what else to say, man. You know, first ballot, Kenny doesn't even begin to describe his legacy.
Oh, he's gonna get that for sure. And this is where Kenny the party pooper comes in.
Yeah, do it.
I think that both guys, when they fight, and let's go to Beneil's 8-fight win streak. That is insane. Okay, doing that in the UFC is no freaking joke. However, he is a guy that has flirted with disaster. In that, even in his wins, it's like he almost loses, and going against a guy like Charles Oliveira, who's so offensive minded, he's going to catch you at some point. And I think Charles Oliveira defensively, we've seen him struggle at times. We've seen him knocked down against Gaethje. We've seen him get dropped against Islam and some other fights where he comes back and, able to rally back. So I think that when you're talking about offense, killer instinct, most finishes in UFC history, yeah, he's one of the greatest to ever do it. Is he the greatest lightweight of all time? I don't know, because I'm thinking about, like, let's say Khabib. If we're thinking about Khabib Nurmagomedov, for example, I don't remember a time where he's been dropped. I don't remember a time where you're like, oh my gosh, is he going to make it out of this round? I do remember those moments for Charles Oliveira on maybe more than 5 occasions. So that's the only thing that's kind of preventing me from, going there and kind of hoisting him up as the greatest. But he is a guy that is so exciting to watch. The reason everyone's given him this big pop and why everyone wants to see him fight is because, all right, unlike Khabib, he's extremely exciting. He's going out there to get in your face and finish you any way he can. That's what creates a superstar. Okay, yeah. Whether he has the belt or not. And that's what separates Charles Oliveira from someone else. Is he technically perfect? No. Things that needs to shore up. But as far as, looking at a guy paying money to see someone fight, it's right. Charles Oliveira. That's why he's a huge star. That's why he goes out there and gets finishes. And that's why I think the UFC should put him as the next guy to go in there against Makhachev.
Ray, any chance you can grab some headphones? We actually have you muted right now. I don't know if you have any headphones around, but I'm being told the crackling is because we need some headphones. But if you don't have headphones, then we will take any version of you that we can.
Well, let me go grab.
All right, Ray's going to go grab some headphones.
How's it sound right
Sounds
now?
like fucking trash.
Oh, wow.
I love you, though.
No,
Anik and Florian podcast poll question. Can you mute him for me? Thank you. Hey, DraftKings Network, don't fire us after this week. Anik and Florian podcast poll question. Who do you believe is the greatest lightweight in UFC history? No wrong answers. Question is open to interpretation. And these are my words. I'd argue no one is more accomplished than Charles Oliveira, but is he your lightweight GOAT? Still plenty of time to vote. Khabib Nurmagomedov getting 47.7% of the vote. Charles Oliveira, 41.5% of the vote. BJ Penn, 10.4% of the vote. Now, Kenny, I don't really know that there's any other name you could inject into the conversation. You know, Islam Makhachev was the fourth choice, but nobody's really going to acknowledge him over Khabib in that conversation right now. Yeah. Charles Oliveira can lay claim to having finished a lot of the guys that are also on Khabib Nurmagomedov's championship resume. 29-0 will always be hard to argue with. Khabib Nurmagomedov's domination juxtaposed against, I don't know, maybe double-digit UFC losses even for Charles Oliveira, right? Like there are weird points of comparison when it comes to Charles Oliveira and Khabib Nurmagomedov. But no lightweight fighter has accomplished more than Charles Oliveira inside that octagon, and the longevity component of what he has done. He's had so many different phases to his career. I just feel like when you add this win to everything that he has already done, given that every sharp mind out there seemingly was backing Beneil Dariush, I just think this is a huge, huge singular win and a win that Khabib doesn't have.
Yeah, I agree. And again, I don't want to say it's irrelevant almost, but at the end of the day, when someone is looking to buy a UFC ticket and it's, let's say, between a Khabib Nurmagomedov or a Charles Oliveira, people are going to pick Charles Oliveira all day, just because of that style. And shit is going to go down when he goes in there to compete. I mean, it's so impressive to see him go out there, pick his opponents apart, and when he has you hurt, he finishes you. Period. You can't say that about any other guy, besides really Charles Oliveira, and he's doing it at an extremely high level, and he's been doing this for an extremely long time. It's so fun to watch, man. It really is. He's an absolute dynamo.
And one of the most amazing statistics in MMA history is that Conor McGregor's weight class that in theory would have been the best one for him to fight in long-term, 155 pounds. Conor has one lightweight win, and it's over Eddie Alvarez for the title. And yes, that made him the double champion, and you can argue that as the most significant singular win in UFC lightweight history because of it, but absolutely remarkable that Conor McGregor only has one lightweight win in his entire career. And that's why, of course, he's not anywhere near this conversation as great as I think he could have been competing consistently at 155 pounds. I mentioned all the sharps on Beneil Dariush, right? Beneil Dariush was the favorite all week. It seemed as though maybe like right at close, there was a big Charles Oliveira bet because my brother seemed to see Charles Oliveira at minus 125 when at times on fight day, Charles was plus 130. But, Chael Sonnen suggested Charles Oliveira wouldn't win a round. There were a lot of people that went all in on Beneil Dariush. You had a perfect UFC 289. The only fight you didn't hit was this one. So what were your thoughts on Beneil Dariush's performance and everything that this fight week held for Benny Dariush?
Thank you for asking. I wanted to get into that. I thought Beneil got into some great positions, right? I mean, he was able to get on top. And to me, man, I want to be respectful of Beneil, but he wasn't adjusting. I saw not the best MMA IQ out there in that he kept trying to throw the biggest shots from very far away. And Charles Oliveira is just too damn slick, man. You're on top and you're trying to wing these huge shots, and Oliveira was avoiding all of them as opposed to kind of calming down, mix up your strikes. Similar to just trying to go for overhand rights on the feet. How about a jab here and there? Well, how about, some small shots, some body shots, something to mix things up that Oliveira had to adjust with. And I felt like he almost got a little bit too emotional and just started scrapping as opposed to trying to pick him apart and just land shots on his jaw. And Benny's an excellent grappler. He really is. And he's got power, but I think he got himself a little bit too emotional when he got that top position. Similar to Irene Aldana, different people are going to react in these big moments in different ways. Yeah. And I think after this one, Benny's going to look back at that and go, man, I should have settled down. I should have looked for smarter shots out there. Instead of trying to take his head off, he should have been a little bit more methodical and way more calculated when he had that top position inside Oliveira's guard.
So Beneil Dariush had a lot of interesting things to say in our fighter meeting. He said, Charles Oliveira is still a mystery to me. And then he also had a quote that he said, the hardest thing for me is discipline mid-fight, that he loves an ugly fight. But yeah, I agree, Kenny. Like, seemingly his strong fight IQ and his instincts were not there on the night that he most needed them to be there. And it was interesting just seeing the way he approached this fight week. And, I think we all do it differently. He's got his kids like in the room with him. And I don't know that unleashes your most primal state. I do think maybe there was part of this fight week that Beneil Dariush would go back and redo. Ray, what do you have for us on the Dariush side, if anything?
Yeah, look, I'm agreeing with both of you guys. And it's different, but it's similar. It looked like both Aldana and Beneil, they kind of, but not really Beneil, but Kenny brings up something like he's been in some of those chaotic situations. He doesn't come out on top. I mean, I kind of put that also on Oliveira, but Oliveira, man, he went right through it. I don't know. I think, I don't know. At least you saw a way of it. Like, again, I could see him doing really good on the floor. Standing up wise, I thought he'd do way better. I thought he could control the pace a little better, pick his shots, get to the floor a little easier. But once the chaos started, he jumped right in there, and the same thing happened to him that happened to him in the past a couple of times, which stinks. But because I know he waited so long for this moment. And,
right.
And as much as I agree with you, John, with the kids and stuff, if you know the guy, I mean, he's just a laid back, chilled out guy. That's good and bad. It might be bad for the reasons you're alluding to, but it's also good in the loss that he recognizes the only thing that matters to him is he has his family. And I think that's what's going to give him solace moving forward. So I think it's a kind of like a double-edged sword, but I think he's one of those guys that really keeps that in perspective. So if he had to go out, he's going to go out bringing that kid every time. You know what I mean? I think that's I think that's huge. But I think your point is really well taken. You like that, and me too. Focus, let's go. But everybody's different. But
you're right. Like if you said to Kenny Florian, Ken-Flo, title eliminator against Gray Maynard will give you an extra $250,000, but your kids have to sleep in your hotel room the night before the fight. He would say, keep your fucking money. There's just no way. Everybody's different. But yeah, I thought we hit on a lot of truths when it comes to Beneil Dariush. I think I over prep for Charles Oliveira, right? His fights don't last that long. There's so much we leave on the table, right? The whole shoot to box angle, right? Macaco, former student of Rafael Cordero under that banner back in the day. We touched on it a little bit, but you're not getting into any of that stuff when it comes to Charles because his fights are so quick. One thing I wanted to share with the audience, and I'm a little scrambled today, so I hope I didn't already reference this, but Ray, I asked Charles about power and if he trained for power, if he always knew he had natural power. Michael Chandler, I've asked about this. He says he definitely trains for power and thinks you can. Some people think it's all rooted in technique. I think a smoke alarm might have just gone off here. But Charles Oliveira deflected when I asked him about power. He was just giving all credit to shoot to box and the system and the coaches, and he feels like he unleashes power really based more upon technique and speed that he's been taught. So what are your thoughts on natural power versus trained power and all that?
I think there's nothing better than a guy. Some guys just have dynamite in their hands, man. They just have bricks in their gloves. It's, some of those guys can't get it to the target either. So they expose themselves too much. So, I mean, obviously the stronger you are, you should be more powerful. I mean, you could get like really technical with it, but
Yeah.
It's more based on technique. You know what I mean? Where if you can get the punch there quicker than the guy could see it, like you got natural power, you know. And again, to have no power at all, like where you can't break an egg, you would see a big difference. But everybody's got enough power. Most of the guys we're talking about anyway to get somebody out of there for sure. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah,
enough,
no, it does.
You know, I think he's right. I think he's right in saying technique and everything else. But you know, you get into those gym wars, which you know, Shootbox was famous for. Your power's coming in. Let me tell you something. I'm sure I mentioned on the show before. Oliveira fought at one of my shows, the Ring of Combat, before the UFC. So we're looking at like 2008, 2009. He beat a local kid who was a tough kid. I mean, he decapitated him. Power. Wow. I was in shock when he got in the UFC. I wasn't seeing what I saw in the Ring of Combat. He was a vicious kicker, and you could even see with the head kick. Dariush blocked that kick. You know what I mean? But
it went right through. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I think it was the speed of which you got up there. You get caught off guard. There's a lot of things that go into power. I don't want to sit here and go through that all day. But he was powerful back in the day. Again, I'm telling you right now, he has natural power, especially, you know, for a lankier guy like that. He's definitely has power, and he's proven it. And I mean, look at his record. Look at the guys he's beat. You know. Yeah.
That's a cool reference. Kenny, did you want to jump in with something there? I believe you did.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, I was going to say, Ray actually touched on it after, the speed also, right? It's like if your brain isn't ready to take that impact and didn't expect it to come from a certain angle, it rocks you. And Oliveira definitely had that speed advantage against Dariush. And I also think we've seen him get so much better, right? I mean, Oliveira has made such great improvements, not only, you know, with his technique, but with his confidence, his overall game, and how he puts it all together. He's got so many weapons that you have to worry about that, you know, your brain's kind of scrambled trying to figure out what the hell is he going to throw next, and that is such an important skill set.
Yeah, without a doubt. My point about him fighting at the Ring of Combat too is that at that night he was head and shoulders above most of the guys fighting on that card. Like, you knew this kid was going to be a champion, or he was going to be good. It was vicious. I'm telling you, it was vicious. And I'm glad he got to the point where he got. I mean, look, the only criticism, if I had a criticism, I don't see anything out of that performance that makes me think the Islam fight would go different. I don't know if that's just me. Right. I just think that matchup, he could beat everybody. Now I'm convinced everybody he's going to beat, he just might be stuck in that category where he can't beat the champ, because I think that matchup is just a bad matchup for him.
Yeah, see, I think he can beat Islam. I think that betting line for that potential rematch in October is completely out of whack. I'm seeing Charles at like plus 360. I guess we'll see, you know, but I just feel like everything that he has done since that loss in terms of the camp and the statement at 154 pounds, and even the conviction and confidence that comes with this result, I guess we'll see, you know, but
I think he deserves it, John. There's no question. I agree with Ray, though, because Islam doesn't throw himself out of position. Islam doesn't take major risks. There's no holes in his game where you're like, 100%. Oh, Charles could expose this or that. He just the dude doesn't make mistakes. That's the problem with Islam Makhachev. So that's what makes it tough in a rematch. So I agree with Ray there. But as far as, you know, someone who's gonna move forward and try to finish the fight, like, that's how you beat Islam Makhachev. You don't go out there and try to decision him or outpoint him. You need someone with a skill set like a Charles Oliveira, who's at least going to try to go for the finish. That's his best bet of kind of creating that chaos. And I don't think there's anyone else that can do it like Oliveira in that regard. So that's kind of why I want to see it. But you know, so but I do agree with Ray at the same time.
Yeah,
right now on DraftKings Sportsbook, Islam Makhachev minus 300, Charles Oliveira plus 250. Go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, crazy. I mean, but I'm agreeing too with you guys. He 100% deserves that shot. Like, that's the tricky part. You can't deny him the shot because he looked that good, and he is that good. But sometimes, you know, styles make fights, and that strong wrestling base seems to be Oliveira's weak spot. Like, again, when that guy gets on top, he's not making mistakes, like Kenny said. And that's where the problem is. So it's either you can get him out standing, or you're going to have trouble with him, you know. And I mean, look how well he got knocked down and then submitted. So that could happen. But I thought that was a dominant win for Islam, and we kind of know Oliveira could do now what he did to Beneil to 99% of the guys, and that's where it gets tricky to me. Is that I'm not sure I'm seeing the rematch going his way, but he 100% deserves it, and that's all that matters. I think when you give a guy a shot, and I think this time maybe he does things differently. Maybe he can make it a better fight. Maybe even based on Volkanovski's performance with Islam. Maybe he picked up a couple of things that he could exploit. Who knows? That's his camp's. Hopefully they're in tune with that, but he 100% deserves that shot.
July 29th, Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje fight for a second time for the BMF title. The calendar for the winner of that fight, even by knockout quickly, wasn't necessarily going to align for October against Islam Makhachev. Had Beneil Dariush won, it seemed like he was going to turn around quickly and fight Islam in October. But for Charles Oliveira to set up a second fight with Islam Makhachev based upon the way the first fight went, he needed exactly this to essentially make himself undeniable. Like if you're Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje watching that fight, you're thinking, man, like, how do you deny Charles right now? And Volkanovski could factor into this equation as well. Huge fight for him against Yair Rodriguez, but there's definitely a groundswell of support for a second meeting between those two guys as well. All right, Ray, before we let you go, it will be Brad Tavares for Chris Weidman in his return. It'll be Boston, Massachusetts, where at least in MMA, they like blindly support New Yorkers, right? But like if I'm a Boston fan in the building that night, cheering Tavares, absolutely booing the New Yorker Chris Weidman, probably booing the New Yorker Aljamain Sterling if I'm in Boston, right? Not going to root for New Yorkers. But very excited nonetheless to have Chris back for the first time since April of 2021. And, I do say a lot of that tongue-in-cheek. Chris has a huge spot occupied in my heart, and I'm very emotional and happy to have him back, of course.
Yeah, no, it's great. He sounds great, man. He sounds great, and he's been training out in South Carolina. We'll start talking about when he's coming here, or if I'm going there, or whatever we're going to do. But
Longo Florian.
He's Carolina Chris now.
He's
not New York. He's not New York anymore. He's Carolina Chris.
Could have a little Florian Longo reunion in the Carolinas.
We got to meet up because I don't think Chris is too far. I don't think he's too far from me. So.
I think he's in Fort Mills. I don't know how far that is from you, but it's all good. It's all good. And just let me shout out. I got 3 guys fighting at the CFFC this upcoming Friday, which is good on Fight Pass. Dennis Bazooka, trying to get into the UFC again, so he's looking good. Damian Nelson and Charlie Campbell, 3 good guys. I expect 3 finishes.
This is a big weekend. You got Damian Nelson, you got that fucking Charlie Campbell trigger, Dennis Bazooka. Hey, Ray.
Oh, jeez.
Dennis Bazooka. I mean, he's already deserving of a UFC roster spot, but he finds himself in an interesting situation because a fight like this, when you're on the precipice, and I hope he's not listening, like decisions aren't good enough.
Yeah, you're right.
It's a hard reality, but that is the truth. Like generally speaking, as I have tried, however infrequently, to get regional guys into the UFC with the soft word to Sean Shelby, you better be on a win streak and you almost better be on a finishing streak.
Yes. Yeah, I think he makes that pretty clear.
Yeah, and I also think, too, at this stage of the game, given the bloated nature of the roster, short notice, Dana White Contender Series, I know Bazooka obviously has had some experience there, but short notice and Dana White's Contender Series are the 2 primary conduits to get in.
That's the only way to get in.
It is.
At this point. I think it's the only, that's what they're doing now. It looks like that. So, hopefully we get a couple more guys on the Contender Series too, so I'm excited about that. We already have 1 guy on, Pampos Gregorio, bantamweight, so that's good too. But anyway.
All right, man. Well, big weekend. I'll be watching CFFC on UFC Fight Pass this weekend. Just kidding, I won't be, but
and
I actually might.
I'll be cornering with Aljo too. I think the CFFC might be doing like a Hall of Fame dinner for him also.
Oh, wow.
So, it's going to be a nice weekend.
Ray, good luck, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Hey, thank you for waking up early.
Is the crackling still going on? Was that me? I really apologize.
Yeah, that's okay. No, it's fine.
No, I'll bring the No, leave the headphones here. It was definitely the headphones, though.
No, I mean, I have a call with our chief of content, Stacey McCollum at DraftKings next week, and hopefully she doesn't bring it up, but all good. Sabotage the whole fucking show. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, real quick,
listen, Crackling can't cancel out the content. It's impossible.
That's right. No,
this content
absolutely.
is unbelievable. They recognize
content
that.
is king. So, in all seriousness, right, did you have to set an alarm and pivot your schedule a little bit to make this 10:30 a.m. window work?
Oh, 100%. But the good news is why I called Cody last night. So I'm doing Weidman's podcast at 12:30. So I got to race to the gym because
you might not have been available to us in our normal window.
No,
so it's good we got
not. No, you know that. I won't even go there. You get for that.
Right.
I'm not going anywhere.
With another podcast right behind our backs.
Not happening. But it actually worked out good, is what I'm saying. As much as it's early for me. It worked out great.
All right, buddy. Well, I might be in the New York area next week, so I absolutely will look you up. And
let's do it, man.
I wish you a great day and a better evening, and, of course, all the best this weekend at Cage Fury Fighting Championships.
All right, guys. I will talk to you nuts. You want to get treated like a king, give me a buzz.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
Take care, guys. Take care. I'll see you.
The Ray Longo Minute every week here on the Anik Florian Podcast. Brian Petrie coming up in about 3 minutes. I just want to hit on proper Mike Malott, and we will extend the UFC 289 recap with Mr. Petrie here in a few minutes. But to the surprise of me as I was prepping this show, and I think to the surprise of our UFC fan base, Kenny, there are only 16 Canadian fighters on this UFC roster of over 700 fighters. And we have been waiting for somebody to take this torch for this nation and become a star, right? We've talked in the past about you sort of being maybe born in the wrong city to be this wildly popular professional athlete, right? In Boston, Massachusetts, with the Red Sox, the Patriots, the Celtics, and the Bruins. Now, obviously, in your prime, when you were fighting for the title, you were a massive star in Boston. But in Canada, Kenny, it does not take much for you to have this nation by the testicles. And there have been a lot of fighters, Hakeem Dawodu and Gavin Tucker and others, who we thought maybe could do it. And Hakeem Dawodu is actually the only man to beat proper Mike Malott. But at least right now, with respect to all the Canadians, Charles Jourdain and others, there is a one. There is a one as to which guy could potentially take the torch for Canada. It is proper Mike Malott. He took advantage of this showcase. He gets Adam Fugit out of there with a submission in round 2. He has 10 pro wins. They are all by finish, 9 of them in round 1. He's an outstanding grappler. I'm curious what you thought about Mike Malott and ultimately what you think the ceiling might be for Canada's best hope for UFC Golden Glory here in 2023.
He's an excellent athlete as well. And from what I can see, just overall package, he really has everything to be that star. No question about it, man. I was really impressed with his takedowns, his opportunistic submission that he hit there. That's a beautiful submission that you don't see a whole lot of people hit. It's become a little bit more popular at the high levels of the grappling circuit. I think the first time I saw it was maybe Nate Diaz way back in the day. It's an arm and guillotine. Yeah. But what you're doing is it's kind of like that high elbow guillotine. They call it the high wrist guillotine as well, with that wrist connecting to the shoulder and you're controlling the arm. So there's almost no escape there. That's high level shit. Okay. That is not easy to pull off. Those takedowns were beautiful. He's extremely technical and his ability to put it all together. And he's not just a grappler. I think that his striking looked very sharp as well. It's good enough to get him at the range that he needs to be. And he looks like an athlete. He moves like an athlete. So he says the right things. He's exciting when he gets the mic. And I definitely think Canada can have a big star in Mike Malott. So it was great to see that performance. I think, was it last fight or the fight before that? He got a little too scrappy, maybe a little bit reckless, but still pulled off the win, showed that he has heart. He's got determination. He's got a chin. So I'm excited, man. I'm excited for the Canadian fans. I think they definitely have something in Mike Malott. No question.
I wouldn't be surprised to see him headline maybe against a ranked welterweight later in the year in Canada. Huge win for proper Mike Malott, and I do think it goes without saying we miss your jiu-jitsu analytics on the UFC telecast. All right, plenty more coming up on UFC 289 as we recap it. Let's get to Brian Petrie and our main event challenge.
It's the main event challenge. Anik.
The time is most definitely now.
Florian.
I finish fights! I'm gonna do everything possible to win.
The main event challenge. The John Anik and Kenny Florian podcast.
Let's go. The great big gun, Brian Petrie, now joins us from his vacation in Wilmington, North Carolina. Good to see you, handsome.
Carolina Brian is what they're calling me down here.
I like that.
Yes. I hope they keep it in, John, when you freaked out about the tech issues, because
it's all staying.
I bought a mic and a stand, and I'm like, I want to keep it professional. I have a Mac computer. I don't have a fucking dongle. And I lost my shit. My kids left for the beach. They're like, Dad's mad. We're getting out of here. So I was so bummed out. And I seeing you react like that. I'm like, okay, we're human. We got it, babe. We got it.
We're good. And you sound great and you look great. And of course, we're always happy to have you. And Kenny, I hope you don't mind when I bring up some of the Boston stuff, but oftentimes I talk about like Uriah Faber in Sacramento. Right. That's the perfect city in which to be an MMA fighter at that point in time. And yeah, he's got a lot of charisma, but they got the Sacramento Kings and nothing else. Like, you think Uriah Faber's some massive star in Boston?
Wait, are you telling me it's not like the Patriots and Kenny Florian, the Celtics, the Bruins? Is that what you're saying? I don't believe.
Well, Bilal Muhammad did a podcast over the weekend, and he talked about being one of the best athletes in Chicago right now. And I don't deny him that, right? He's comparing himself to Justin Fields, and I think it's sort of a little bit of an act, and we love Bilal. He's family. But it's hard in a big city, and Bilal's done a lot of things to throw out the first pitch for the White Sox and the Cubs or whatever, but it is hard in a big city. And when you're in a small nation like Canada that is so rabid about its mixed martial arts, the opportunity for these fighters like proper Mike Malott to change his life financially and otherwise is just insane. I'm just telling you. All right. I wanted to ask you about Dan Ige, if I could, Brian Petrie. Big win over Nate Landwehr. And I hate to trot out sort of a lazy phrase like, oh, there are levels to this game, right? But a lot of people were wondering if Nate Landwehr could level up. And I just thought Dan Ige fought a brilliant fight. Ken-Flo, I remember 4 or 5 fighter meetings ago when Ige even told us, I'm starting to play with some more switches, some open stances. And great performance by Dan Ige. Brian Petrie, what did you think about the featherweights on pay-per-view?
I mean, incredible fight. We all knew it was going to be. Nate DeTrain's a stud. I mean, listen, I thought Nate DeTrain, obviously there are levels to this. And you got Dan Ige, who really leveled up his own game with the switching. Big power. Horrible matchup for Nate DeTrain, by the way, too. Some of those elbows, some of those shots Nate was landing would probably hurt someone else. But Dan Ige is so built different. He doesn't get hurt. He's a stud. The only time I've ever seen him get hurt was to the body by Edson Barboza. That can happen to anybody. Incredible fight. I think Nate's right there. His personality is going to take him there. Is he world championship material? Is he going to hold 145 belt? Maybe, maybe not, but he's going to be a guy that we're going to all want to see. Love him at the press conference. But Dan Ige, those switches that confused Nate and dropped him were a thing of beauty. I loved it. And you're right. I think there are levels, and I think Ige leveled up. I'm curious to see him start touching top 10, top 5 guys again and see where he's at.
Kenny, this was Nate Landwehr's 7th UFC appearance. It was actually my first time meeting him or talking to him or calling his fight. Decorated former M1 global champion, accomplished a lot in Russia, but this night belonged to Dan Ige, a guy who's twice headlined for the UFC. The guys that have beat Dan Ige recently, right? He lost 2 main events, I believe, to Josh Emmett and Calvin Kattar. He also lost to Movsar Iavloyev. But where do you stand on Dan Ige at present? And ultimately, what do you think about him moving forward here at 45?
I think he's trending upwards. When you look at his performance here against Nate Landwehr, in my opinion, I saw some new things that I haven't seen out of him before. Always has the power. That will stay with him for sure. Now, how do we use that power? How do we get those angles? How do we confuse? Well, we're seeing that now with the shifting stances. He's looking for angles. He's been working with a buddy of mine, Jimmy Gifford, originally from Boston. So I know he's been really working on his hands. He's blessed with power. And he also, he has that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt to fall back on. He's tough to hold down. So he's definitely making improvements and doing the right things to stay relevant in that division, no question.
All right, congratulations to Marc-Andre Barrio. Big win over Eric Anders. And I do believe that Anders remains game. I just think there are some limitations to his overall game, but I did think that it was a spirited effort out of Eric Anders, and I think the broadcast reflected that. Jasmine Jazz Divisius, part of a 6-0 night for Canada with Eamon Zahabi. Kyle Nelson in a must-win situation over Blake Builder. And Steve Erceg. Everybody in Perth and across Australia knows how good this guy is, and now the rest of the UFC world does as well. Don't you worry, we're going to get to the no contest here coming up shortly. But let us update the results after UFC 289. Good week for both of you guys as you continue to hit him straight. Petrie 4-2 on the week, plus $310. You had the 3-unit trigger on Marc-Andre Barrio, the hit on Charles Oliveira at plus money. Missed on Landwehr. You took a shot on him at plus money. And you did give out a wayward prelim pick on Blake Builder. But overall, talk to me about your night at the window, UFC 289.
We did okay. I got to admit something. I'm an honest guy. I'm a bit of a fraud. And I'm going to go ahead and name drop here. Your boy, Evan Longoria, DM'd me, said, hey, big fan of the pod, everything like that. He goes, the only thing, you bet against Benny. Like, what's up, man? You got to go Benny. So I said, listen, I actually took Benny, but I went opposite Florian part of our game. So I did have Benny Dariush. I had a $50 bet with a buddy of mine, side bet, that Benny was good. If anyone's going to submit anybody, Benny would submit Charles. Obviously, that didn't happen. So even though I'm getting points in our game from Charles, I'm a bit of a fraud because I did bet Benny and lose. So I want to make that obvious. But I did hit Erceg. I think that Astro Boy's a stud. I did a lot of tape study on him. I think he's clean on the feet. He's smooth. Good on the – when he gets on the ground, man, he is slick. Positionally needs to work on some stuff, but like he'll jump on your neck, your arm, whatever. He's great. And so we did okay. We're up, slight up. I don't even think we cracked a full unit. I can't live bet North Carolina, which sucks. But other than that, I think we're okay.
All right, and on the Team Florian side, I mean, this kid just continues to stripe the ball, folks. 4-1. That included a 3-unit whack on Mike Malott. And that pick, in retrospect, Kenny, looks extremely sharp because Mike Malott was not minus 280, right? He was minus 200. Fuget's game as fuck. Your Petrie 3-unit play on Marc-Andre Barrio looks very sharp as well at the short price. Only miss for Kenny on the night, as we mentioned, Benny Dariush. So Florian plus $470, now plus $255 on the year. And Petrie creeping back to the black as well, minus 24.20. No contest on the featured prelim between Nassourdini Mavov and Chris Curtis. Sort of another tough non-W for Florian as far as the main event challenge is concerned. I had a chance to spend some time with Chris after the fact. 10 stitches, partial corneal abrasion, and as much as he wanted to stay in a fight he was not winning, can't fight with one eye. What were your thoughts on your boys' no contest over the weekend?
Yeah, so I talked to him afterwards. I didn't talk to him much before the fight. I talked to him afterwards, and I love Chris, but he is, he's a guy that's won a lot, and he's a little bit of a sore loser. People get after him on social media, and he doesn't like it. However, he's taking this pretty well. He's very upset. Listen, if you get cut, you get a headbutt, you can't fight. That's the first time in 40 fights he's ever done that. But he's so pissed off that he got taken down because his glove got caught in his shorts.
Yeah.
He's like, I lost my perfect fucking stat because my gloves got caught in my short. He's like, this guy should not have taken me down. He didn't feel strong in there. He's strong when he's got the plum, but body locks were nothing. So that was our conversation. I just told him to keep his head up because sometimes he gets emotional after stuff like this. And he seems to be doing good. I told him he's got a baby on the way. Enjoy your girl's pregnancy. Enjoy your son. You fought a lot in this past year and a half. Take a beat. You don't need to rush back in there. Take a beat. But I know he's going to be training next week. But, I saw some hate online. I saw some, a couple of my buddies even texted me, maybe a little boozed up going, if he says he can continue, why can't he continue? I was like, so you have never obviously been hit in the head with anything before. The guy's got a cut of his eyes. Eyes was seizing up a little bit because panic's setting in because Herzog was like, we'll give you a minute, but we got to go. It reminds me of Jeremy Stevens, Yair Rodriguez down in Mexico. The eyes is seasoned shut, and he's trying to open it up. I mean, he used Jason Herzog's shirt to try to get it out of his eye.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean,
that was a bad cut, dude.
Yeah,
that was a bad cut. I thought it was going to be in the double digits, I like even more so like in the 20s or something because it looked really bad and it was at a bad spot. And
it wasn't like super wide like you see, but it was really dense and deep. And and when you see posters on social media, it's a nasty thing. I was bummed out for him, obviously, but, he's always going to have my support. And, a fight that he wasn't doing so good in, I thought really he came out aggressive, which was great. That was something that he's plagued him, and Imanov was ready for that. Second round, obviously, he was touching the body more. The big trigger for me was how was Imanov going to respond in the third round, because cardio has fallen off before. He's obviously went 5 rounds of Strickland, but that was going to be a trigger for me. But yeah, I feel for my guy, and hopefully he takes a beat, maybe comes back in December, January, enjoys his kid, and and we'll get back to it.
Yeah, second kid on the way in October. Yeah. He told me he probably wasn't going to compete until December, but we'll see how it goes for Chris Curtis. I think very relevant at middleweight, but I thought Nassourdini Mavov looked outstanding, and I'm really now excited to see his next fight, because I feel of the two guys, respectfully, I almost feel worse for Imavov, because that really looked like it was going to be a W, Mm-hmm. All right, let us get to UFC Fight Night. Vettori versus Cannonier coming up this weekend from the UFC Apex. Now, in the nature of full disclosure, because we are nothing if not honest with this audience, but DraftKings did not have the complete fight card odds out as of this taping. So these prices, not exact with the exception of the main event that is live on DraftKings Sportsbook right now. But these odds will be very close to my man Johnny Avello's numbers. So here we go. 10th UFC appearance for the 36-year-old Raoni Barcelos, minus 225. Miles Johns, plus 190. So Barcelos, Brian, knocked out by Umar Nurmagomedov his last time out in January. Miles Johns has momentum. He's won 3 of 4. Hasn't fought since a win over Vince Morales last November. Your thoughts?
Ohani Barcelos.
By the way, I have to say.
Yeah.
Our producer Cody Merrow's segment, Merrow Seconds, is going to come back next week or in the not-too-distant future. Yeah. But I think heretofore, one of our listeners messaged me privately about that. Mm-hmm. He said, Cody's too good at pronunciations to do the pronunciation of the week. He said, you got to leave the main event challenge with the pronunciation of the week and give it to Petrie because
it's disaster.
It's not necessarily his strong suit. I was like, Cody's fucking learning Brazilian Portuguese. He's not the guy. Yeah. So I think that might be part of your new exercise.
Hey, I'll do whatever. I'll do. Listen, I took Spanish 1 twice in high school, so we know where we're at with me. Okay, but as far as this fight, listen, Barcelos, 36 years old at 135. I know that's an old. Everyone brings it up, but listen, cutting that much weight, he is not a small 35er either. Cutting that much weight at that age is a little dicey for me. And he's fought everyone. I know his resume is great. He's got good wrestling. He's got good jiu-jitsu. He's got big power. But his last couple fights, even though they're against high-level guys, besides maybe Danny Henry or Victor Henry, excuse me, he's been hit a little bit. He's been shaking a little bit. Again, against high-level guys. Miles John, there's no volume there on this guy, but great wrestling and big, big power. So I just see a fight where Barcelos is going to be trying to be active because he does throw a lot of strikes. But Miles John's got that game changer with his right hand, and he can stop Barcelos' takedowns. And when you're hanging plus 190 on me, and I got this huge deficit, I'm going to go dog here. I think Barcelos' confidence is waning. I think Miles John's confidence is on the rise. You got a young kid here with big, big power, and good wrestling chops as well. So give me Miles John at the dog price.
And I also remind you guys, as we get closer to the minus 1,000 Arman Tsarukyan, that you can always abstain if you don't like the prices on one fight per exercise. Ken-Flo, Raoni Barcelos minus 225, Miles Johns plus 190. Who do you like?
Yeah, interesting fight between two semi-similar fighters, and I agree with everything Brian said there. Raoni, there's times where early on in his career when I saw him, it seemed like his striking was sharper than it is now. I don't know if it's a confidence thing. Maybe he's got some nagging injury. But I don't know. Can he win this fight? Yeah, sure. But I think Miles Johns has the background and he's got the power, like Brian said, on the feet, where he can definitely pull off a win here. I think Barcelos' best path to victory here is probably trying to out-wrestle Johns. Is that enough to win round after round after round? I don't think so. I think this is a juicy number for Miles Johns. I think there's a lot of value there, and I'm with you on this one, Brian. I was hoping you were going to go the other way, but this dude's too sharp. He's too sharp.
We're synced up, bud.
Yes.
I'm not suggesting that the Anik and Florian podcast always moves lines, but I will say with complete veracity to you folks that more often than not, when both Kenny and Brian see value on a fighter in that plus 190 range, it closes significantly lower than that. So we'll see where Johnny Avello and the folks open Miles Johns, but clearly both of these guys see some sort of value on Miles Johns at plus 190. All right, at featherweight, Bri will lead with you on this one as well. Pat Sabatini, minus 185. Lucas Almeida is plus 150. Sabatini out of Philadelphia, PA, 4-1 out of the chute here in the UFC. Coming off a loss, though, to Damon Jackson 9 months ago, and now he draws the 14-1 Lucas Almeida.
Man, I was so high on Pat Sabatini, and maybe I still am, but the Damon Jackson loss was so ugly. Thought that was a good matchup for me. He just got starched on the feet. Looked like he couldn't take a punch. Everything was clipping him. Everything was falling him. Damon Jackson's a great fighter, but he's not known for like this worldly power. Sabatini obviously is a guy that wants to get the fight to the ground, wants to grapple you, wants to submit you. Volume very low with his striking. He's not known for his striking. Comes from that Philly camp, which is very tough. Jeremiah Wells is out of there, who's doing great things right now. And Lucas Almeida, 14-1 debut in the UFC, looked pretty good. He's kind of good everywhere. Primarily, he likes to stay on the feet, but he has everything, right? But the competition level is very low. He's got a couple good wins in there, but when you look at the record, you're like, can you trust this guy? I wanted to ride Almeida because I want to fade Sabatini because I'm a little worried about the Damon Jackson. But I'm going to give Pat Sabatini one more chance. I do think this guy's very good. I think he's a dog in there. I think he gets his fight to the ground, controls him on the ground, implements his game, which is just control, look for a submission. Minus 185 is not something I'm running to the window to bet. If I'm being honest with you, I thought this might be a little lower since Sabatini did not look great his last time out. But give me the Philly guy. Give me Philly tough. Pat Sabatini.
I like this vacation Petrie mode in the tank top. Tank top? I mean, can you imagine this unit walking down the beach today?
Hey, I struck the beach yesterday, man. I was strutting the beach. Just fucking
absolute 6'3" unit wearing the San Antonio Spurs jersey today. Whose jersey is that?
So since I Royals disbanded, became the Sacramento Kings. So I bought a Jason Williams white chocolate jersey to wear for here, right? Just because, we're repping. And it was buy one, get one half off. I'm a bargain hunter. So we got the Rodman on the Spurs here, man. Dennis Rodman on the Spurs.
Right.
Yeah.
Ken-Flo, Lucas Almeida, 32 years of age, out of Sao Paulo, 1-0 in the UFC. That debut came more than a year ago. He's had fights go away against Zubaira Tuhugov last October, Andre Fili this February. Then he was supposed to face Hakeem Dawodu in Canada last weekend. So he's 14-1, but hadn't fought in a year, and jury's still out. What are your thoughts on Almeida here against Sabatini?
Yeah, and that can hurt him, not being active like that. I think it certainly can affect a fighter, but I do think he's got some skills. This dude is aggressive, man. He's not trying to hit you. He's trying to hurt you every single time out. He's got some pop in his punches in boxing range. I think that's where Sabatini really needs to be careful. I also think, getting off to a good start, I think, is going to benefit him here against Sabatini. Sometimes I feel like if Sabatini doesn't get into his rhythm, he just gets thrown off and then just kind of calls it a night in some ways. I think grappling-wise, he can get some things done here, and I do think he's got some power, but he's a little too stiff for me on the feet at this stage of the game. And like Brian mentioned, that last fight against Damon Jackson, that's one of those fights that you kind of want to erase off the record. It was definitely not a good performance for him. He was dominated really everywhere. And I can see Lucas Almeida going in there, catching him, getting into boxing range, landing shots, and winning this fight. I know he hasn't been very active, 3 fights in a row that have been called off, but I like the Brazilian here. Give me Lucas Almeida for the upset. I think there's a lot of value.
Lucas Almeida plus 150 for Ken-Flo, and that brings us to a featured bout at 185 pounds. Gloucester, England's Christian Leroy Duncan, minus 165. Armen Petrosyan, plus 140. CLD undefeated at 8-0. TKO of Duško Todorovic at his UFC debut. Todorovic did get injured early in that fight, so a lot of us looking forward to seeing more of Duncan on this type of stage. Petrosyan, the Armenian Muay Thai striker, Contender Series alum, look at a spring what would be a pretty big upset here on paper. What are your thoughts, Brian Petrie, CLD versus Petrosyan?
My old googly eyes are out again at some of these new guys because Christian Leroy Duncan, this dude's good, man. He reminds me of Jimmy Manowal back in the day. Manowal refused UFC a few times. came in, and then everyone thought this guy's going to be the champ. It didn't work out. But Leroy Duncan, good striker, good grappling, knows how to mix it up. He's 6-0, which is still pretty young, so I don't want to get ahead of myself. Obviously looked okay against Dusko. Dusko got hurt in that fight. Arman Petrosyan, though, good striker, good volume. Every fight he lands over 100 strikes, right? His cardio is really working. His anti-grappling is pretty good, but I just don't see there's power there. He's not really knocking anybody out. The last knockout he had was on the Contender Series. All these fights are close split decisions. And I think Leroy Duncan can put a pace on him and can mix everything up. I think that's what he does well. Grappling to striking. He's got big power. He's super athletic as well. Has a whole country behind him. People are really hyped on this kid out of England. Minus 165 is a price I would love to pay, and I'm going to pay it heavy. Should I go extra units? Does Vacation Brian have the balls to go extra unis? He does. Give me four on Leroy Duncan, baby. It's going to be a close fight, but Barry Anders, I knew it was going to be a close fight as well. Sometimes you got to risk it for the biscuit, baby. Kenny Florian doesn't miss fucking fights. This guy's going 4-1. I got to do goddamn something. So give me Christian Leroy Duncan. 4 units.
That is a $660 wager on Christian Leroy Duncan to return $400. Ken-Flo, you well know Anik and Florian podcast contributor Sean Sheehan. Big fan of Christian Leroy Duncan. We'll see how he handles the second UFC start. What do you have for us on the 85ers?
Yeah, and I could see why. I could see why Brian and Sean are high on him. He's an excellent athlete. He moves really well. He knows how to put it all together really well. And I think this is where he's going to have the advantage over someone like Petrosyan. Awesome Muay Thai guy, but it almost like he needs you to stay in front of him and engage with him in that Muay Thai rhythm. And because of that, it seems like it throws him off a little bit. Grappling-wise, obviously, he's not going to have the skills of Duncan, but I do think that striking-wise, he can pose some problems. I'm not as confident as Brian here, but I do like Christian Leroy Duncan for the win. His ability to mix things up and outpoint him, I think, is really going to be the difference here. But I'm excited to see where he goes and the potential for this kid in this division.
I really like the fight. I like him. I like Petrosyan. He's fun to watch stylistically. So see how that one goes. It'll lead into the co-main event at lightweight. We'll lead with Ken-Flo on this. 8th-ranked Arman Tsarukyan, minus 1,000 against Joaquim Silva, who is plus 650. Tsarukyan, Kenny, has won 6 of 7. The lone loss, of course, a memorable main event against Mateusz Gamrot last June. On the other side, you have the UFC-tested Neto BJJ. A lot of expectations on this kid, really, since his UFC debut in 2015. A lot of power, but this would be the win of his career, and he would be in the top 10 next week. Ken-Flo, your thoughts on the co-main event, Tsarukyan and Silva?
Yeah, I think Joaquim Silva is, he's built, he's got some serious power. I think he could do some things on the feet, but I think Tsarukyan, it just has too many skills. You talk about his wrestling and, his striking, his movement. It is extremely good, man. And I think that him getting together with the American Top Team, working with all the guys down there, I think it's only going to make him that much better. I think there's some pressure on him in that he's just such a big favorite here. But what I'd like to see is a finish out of Tsarukyan. I think he can get it done. No question. I think he wins this fight. But I think it's got to be more than just a decision win here. I'd like to see him go out there, look dominant, get a finish, and kind of make even more people excited about him and when he competes. But pretty easy here, Tsarukyan.
This is a tricky one, though, insofar as you have this big lead, right? And so it's $1,000 to pay 100, right?
I know.
And I'm so reckless, right, that I'd be like, dude, $5K to win, right? But I'm a Joaquim Silva fan. I'm a Tsarukyan fan, of course. But $1,000 to pay 100. What do you got for us, BP? What do you got for us on the co-main?
Listen, that's the first thing I thought, too. I mean, I really dove into Joaquim Silva all last night, trying to find an angle to play him here. I just don't know if I can. I mean, he's cut from stone. He looked like me on the beach yesterday, just strutting, right? This guy, and he's got big power. But, he hasn't fought a grappler in a while. Last time he fought a grappler was Jared Gordon. Jared Gordon took him out 3 times. Time before that, got taken out 5 times. Tsarukyan is a different kind of animal here, and I love what Kenny said. You're minus 1,000. You got everyone talking about you as a young kid. you have to finish. I think Silva's cardio has really improved. I mean, having all those muscles is hard to, it's a broken record. Everyone, you're beefed up. It's hard to maintain that, but it's improved. But I think Sarukian's going to push a pace. He's going to take him down. He's going to smother him. I like a TKO. I like a submission for Sarukian. And I like it has to be kind of early as well. Silva is dangerous first round. So maybe take your time, but wear him out, wear out the arms, fill him with blood, take him out second round. I like second round finish for Sarukian. I wish I can get to that number on Silva because I need to come back, but, I got to pick winners at this point.
All right, Arman Tsarukyan, minus 1,000 right now in the co-main event against Joaquim Silva, and we'll go right back to you, Petrie, on the main event. Number 3 versus number 4 in the middleweight division, Marvin Vettori and Jared Cannonier, both minus 110. So when I first sent you guys the odds, the DraftKings Sportsbook odds, Marvin Vettori was minus 145. Line movement. It's a pick 'em right now. Both men have previously challenged for the title. Cannonier last year during International Fight Week. Vettori back in 2021. Bri, I say it all the time. Since like 2017, only 2 men in MMA who have beaten Marvin Vettori, Adesanya and Robert Whittaker. Vettori had a big win over Roman Dolidze in March at UFC 286. Right back at it here. Familiar territory in a main event against the Killer Gorilla Jared Cannonier. He defeated Sean Strickland via split in a main event last December. Who wins the main event? How do they get it done?
Both these guys are very similar to me. And Cannonier's got a little more power, a little more finishes. Marvin Vettori, obviously, is not known for his heavy power, but they're both coming off fights where you could argue they might have lost. I mean, Dolidze gave Marvin Vettori a hell of a fight. Sean Strickland outlanded Jared Cannonier, but Cannonier landed the harder shots. It's an interesting thing here. Both these guys are obviously wanting to get another shot at Izzy. Don't really know if that's a reality for Vettori, but they both land a lot of volume. And I saw Cannonier, and he looks leaner than I've seen him. And then he's always in incredible shape. I mean, this guy looks diced up. I mean, dicey this week. And Vettori, obviously, he's going to –
I'm going to steal that.
Yeah, do it.
For a UFC telecast. This guy looks dicey. Like, will I ever look dicey? Kenny tells me at one point in my life before I die, right? It's more of a philosophical thing, but like every man should at least get to like his most shredded self.
Sure.
So maybe in my 60s, Kenny will see.
That passed me at 21. I was just on a beer and ramen noodle diet, so I was doing okay. But no, John, I meant to mention your DraftKings ad with the dive into the pool was one of the funniest things I've ever seen, by the way. That was the dive.
Thank you, buddy.
The dive was awesome. Anyway.
Wait till you see the new commercial we just shot in Boston if you like that.
I can't wait. They're very similar. They land a lot of strikes, and Cannonier is now becoming more selective, but he is, heavy-handed, and he does push a pace now. He's got the cardio. You don't got to worry about it. Vettori's got a cardio too, 5 rounds. I think the leg kicks are really going to be a factor here for Cannonier. Marvin Vettori just doesn't check leg kicks. Look at the Adesanya fight. He's in Vegas now. He's working with some guys, but Cannonier kicks hard, and he's made of just something different, right? So I like Cannonier by decision. I think the best play here, fight goes decision, check the box, yes, because I don't think either of these guys are going to finish anybody. Marvin Vettori's got a cement blockhead. That guy's not going anywhere. But give me Cannonier here. I think he's looked a little more cleaner his last 2 fights, and I like him to win the decision. And I see it being competitive, and then him kind of slipping away with it. So give me Jared Cannonier. I was excited when he's at plus money. Now it's moving. So I got to get on that.
I know I probably should give you that price that I first sent, but you know what? I'm not going to do it.
Don't do it.
Ken-Flo, pick him fight in the main event. Marvin Vettori minus 110, same price on Cannonier. Which way you going?
Yeah, very interesting. I think that Cannonier, both guys are capable of winning this fight. This is a very close one, a very difficult one to pick. Cannonier does have 5-round experience, as does Vettori. Vettori is one of those guys that is going to move forward. You know that. Sometimes Cannonier doesn't throw the volume that you want to see. Now, sometimes that also actually works to his advantage because, he is efficient. He's trying to reserve his energy. He's looking for his spots to go. But against someone like Marvin Vettori, who's going to push the action, push the fight, that might be the difference between him winning and losing certain rounds. So I see this going to decision. If someone finishes this fight, it's probably Cannonier. He does have power, I think, to put anyone out, but Vettori does have a chin from hell. He's got that big head. I think it's going to be tough to take him out. But I do think this goes to decision, and if that's the case, I think Vettori moving forward, looking for takedowns. If he can hit that, especially late, he always comes in very well conditioned. And I think if he can mix in some takedowns here and there, get some of those up against the cage like he likes to, win some of that clinch fighting against Cannonier, he can win this fight. Cannonier is the more dangerous guy, but as far as consistency and winning rounds, I'm leaning towards Vettori. That may change as we go out the week. Reserve that right, damn it.
Nice.
But I'm going to lean the way of Vettori. But very interesting fight.
All right, dissension on the main event, which we absolutely love. Brian Petrie, before we let you go, would you like to wet your beak with anything else?
Oh, yeah. So I'm 0-2 for the last 2 weeks. So maybe I should, bench it for this week, but that's not my style. Listen, there's a lot of guys I like. There's a lot of good fights. Manuel Torres is a stud. Him versus Moda is going to be a banger. But I got to go with Zhalgas Zhumagulov because of the hair. His last fight got canceled. He came out like a fucking superstar, high-fiving people. This dude's got an incredible record, split decision losses to everybody, and he's fighting Felipe Burns, who I think is not on his level. I like Zhalgas here to kick it off, and he's at like a -150. I got, I had to bury that line. That's not a DraftKings line, but went and got that line. But give me Zhalgas, baby. The hair's going to be flowing. We like it. We like it.
All right, Zhalgas Zhumagulov. A prelim selection for Brian Petrie to round out his picks for UFC Fight Night. Vettori versus Cannonier. You can see it live on ESPN and ESPN Plus. If you want more from Brian Petrie, and why would you not, at Brian Petrie MMA. Appreciate your contributions, kid. We'll talk to you next week.
Boys, thank you. Sorry for the audio without the mic. And Kenny, I'm 3 hours away, man. If you want to go strut the beach with me, you let me know. I'm here all week, all right?
Yeah.
Let's see you, boys. I'll see you.
Just don't bring Impa Kasanganai to make us all feel like we're a lesser species,
Jeez.
All right, that's going to do it for today. We'll be back later in the week, likely with some sort of fighter interview here on the DraftKings Network. Thank you all for indulging us today. If you want more on the show, check out AnikFlorianPodcast.com. KennyFlorianMartialArts.com is also live. Also look up Argus Integrated Defense. Do you call it Argus Integrated Defense or Defense?
Defense. Yes.
Of course
thank
you do.
Yeah.
Of course you do. Argus Integrated Defense. And One More Sleep Vancouver merchandise. Appreciate everybody's support on that. Those can be had at millions.co. The Salt Lake City designs are up as well. And designs to come in the not too distant future for UFC 290 in Boston, or UFC 290 Vegas and UFC 292 in Boston. And full-length episode coming back your way on Monday as we get ready for the next UFC live event. Thanks to Longo and Petrie, and of course, the brains behind the entire operation, Cody Merrill. For Ken-Flo, I'm John Anik. We'll talk to you later this week. Until then, yo later.